In previous videos, we talked about the sneak peek of the new season of Stranger Things. Finally, it has been revealed that the series will premiere next year, 2022. But in these images, we have been left clues about a mystery in the new season, and it's a strange clock which is in the center of a room. For some, it is evidence that there will be time travel in the story, but for others, it could mean that the end of the world has arrived. Could it be that this clock is evidence that actually Dr. Brenner was fighting to save the world? Do you want to know the true meaning of the clock? Don't stop watching this channel. You're in Stranger Things Geeks. First, let's talk about the possibility that this clock is some kind of time-traveling artifact. Some fans of Stranger Things have said that this clock could be used to travel in time, as if it were Back to the Future, a movie that could inspire the new season of Stranger Things. But that's not how time travel works in this world. If we get time travel, it will be thanks to the ability of a person that has suffered the experiments of Dr. Brenner, not through technology. But even if this clock is not really a time machine, it doesn't mean that it's not important. To understand what this clock really is, we must first talk about Francine, or Number 6. This was the first girl that was put in an isolation tank so she would experience powers. This girl had the power to see into the future, and even change the future. She could see what was coming. It is even thought that she could see the Demogorgon, 11, and even how Dr. Brenner would lose his life. If the theory that I will say next is the correct one, Francine would be responsible for this clock. I will explain it to you. In real life, there is a clock called the Doomsday Clock. The Doomsday Clock is a symbol that represents the likelihood of a man-made global catastrophe. Maintained since 1947 by the members of the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists, the clock is a metaphor for threats to humanity from unchecked scientific and technical advances. The clock represents the hypothetical global catastrophe as midnight. This clock that we saw in the trailer could be a doomsday clock that announces the time in which the end of the world will come. But who put this clock in that place, and why does it mark 12 hours right at that moment? If this really is an artifact that measures the end of the world, it could have been put by Dr. Brenner, and the date of the end of the world could have been given to him by Francine or Number 6 before she lost her life. Maybe Number 6 warned Brenner that the world would be destroyed and a clock was created to remember when it would happen. But why is it shown in this trailer? If we watch carefully, we can see how in the house are Max, Lucas, Joyce, Dustin, Nancy, and Jonathan. But neither Will nor Mike are there. The house where they are is an ancient house. Possibly it's the same house where the clock is. As we saw in another scene, possibly 11 will be kidnapped by Dr. Brenner's henchmen, who will take her to a new lab. In the last teaser, we saw how Brenner also experimented with other children, but we saw several scenes that showed clocks. Both things are connected. Brenner is really fighting against time to avoid the end of the world. Brenner has created this clock to remember that the end of the world is approaching, and that's why he has experimented with children, since he needs to prepare them to avoid the end. 11's friends will travel to this place following 11's clue, and maybe even Brenner's. But once they arrive to this place, they will only find this clock. But what does this clock mean? If this theory is true, this clock marks the time in which the end of the world will come, and a warning by 11 Sisters that could see the future. From this moment, the Mind Flayer will pass to the world and will start turning the planet into another upside down. The clock marks the end, and the fact that it is chiming means that the end has arrived. This means that Season 4 of Stranger Things could end on a cliffhanger, where we see how the planet is engulfed by the Mind Flayer, like the apocalypse that 6 saw is starting to fulfill, and how 11 still hasn't gained back her powers and cannot stop what is happening. Maybe the end has come and no one can stop it. But it is clear that 11 Sisters would have to meet with her again. 11 can't be the only one fighting for the future of humanity. And there are other experiment subjects or 11 Sisters that can join the fight to stop this end. Maybe the 5th season of Stranger Things will be the union of all the sisters and other experiment subjects of Dr. Brenner to fight against the end of the world. But if one thing is certain is that the clock reached 12 hours, and we can listen to a voice that says in the trailer that it is almost here, which can be a reference of the Mind Flayer being back and now is already inside our world. Obviously, there are many questions left unanswered, like where are Will and Mike? Or which other importance do the other clocks in Brenner's lab have, and the clock in this ancient house? But tell me your theories. What do you think this ancient clock could be? And the clocks shown in the lab, could it be that they are aiming towards the end of the world? Could they be a machine to travel in time? Is it an evidence that Brenner was trying to stop the end of the planet? Leave me your opinion in the comments. If this was a correct theory and Brenner is really fighting to prevent the Mind Flayer invasion, would we now consider him a hero? What would you do in his situation? If you found out that our planet will be invaded and the only solution is to experiment with humans, create super soldiers, and thus prevent the invasion, would you do it? And if you want to see more videos about the universe of Stranger Things, subscribe to the channel. You're watching Stranger Things Geeks.